Coming up next on the Holistic Wealth Podcast.
Dwelling on the past is also a recipe for keeping stuck. The first thing we want to do is change that mindset. We want to get out of that kind of scarcity mindset into one of abundance, looking forward to the future with hope. And so renewing that hope on a daily basis is so important for becoming unstuck in life. And so when we talk about even spiritual renewal, which I've spoken about on this podcast before, that's also important in terms of renewing your daily hope and motivation.
You're listening to the Holistic Wealth Podcast with host Keisha Blair, author of Holistic Wealth and founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. And now, here's your host, Keisha Blair.
So today we have another solo episode. And today we're talking about how to get unstuck in life. And I also want to announce a new award for the Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated book. And the book won the 2023 Best Book Awards in the self-help and motivational category. And I'm so grateful to you, the listeners. I'm grateful for the readers, for the support of everyone who supported this journey, who bought books, who spread the word, who sent me messages of support and motivation, those who were a part of the launch of the book, and those who've connected with me, those students who I've coached at the Institute on Holistic Wealth, and those who've done various courses, and everyone who really has connected with this message somehow. I'm so grateful to everyone for being part of this journey. Now, this award was just announced this week, and it's sponsored by the American Book Fest, who puts on the award. And the book won in the self-help and motivational categories, as I just mentioned. And again, we have taken a break from the podcast for a couple of weeks because on the heels of this award and prior to that, I've had just a string of deaths in my extended family. And that has, caused me to kind of pause, to take a break from the podcast to deal with that. As you know, like when these things happen suddenly in families, it really just tends to derail a number of things in life. And that's what happened with this podcast. But I'm so glad to be back with you all to continue the journey on holistic wealth. And so many podcast listeners reached out to me during that time to give words of encouragement and to also tell me how much different episodes meant to you and how much you connected with several past episodes. So thank you once again, everyone. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey, for your support, for your ongoing messages and DMs, whether it's been on Instagram, on Twitter, on whatever platform, sending me emails during this time. I so appreciate it. I'm bursting with gratitude for everyone and for the support that I've received during this time. And of course, this Best Book Award comes after this pause and it's well received. I'm so grateful for this journey. And as we talk about the topic that we're here to discuss, getting unstuck in life, it's so important that, last week, just to give you some context on why I chose this topic for this week, last week I was on Instagram Live, I was being interviewed, and so many people brought forth questions, listeners, to me on how do I get unstuck in life? I feel so overwhelmed in life. I feel underwhelmed. One person said, I've been switching jobs every 2 to 3 years. How do I cope? Why am I feeling this underworld? Why am I feeling so demotivated in my life? And so there's so much going on around us now. So many things in the news. There's so many wars and conflicts. And with inflation and the economy, the global economy as it is, we're honestly dealing with a lot right now. I think we're all bombarded with so many images of grief and death on the news. When we think about what's going on in the world, it's easy, very easy to see those images and just feel this horrific sense of dread. And I know I've seen them. I know all of you have seen them too. And it's part and parcel of the reason why we're feeling this way. And of course, for many people who are going through the loss of a loved one, for many people who are going through grief, if you're stuck in a dead-end job, your finances are in disarray, there's so many reasons why you could be feeling stuck in life right now. And so this is going to be a short, quick episode, but I just want to give some strategies, some quick tips on how we can begin to get unstuck. And some of that is also covered in Holistic Wealth in the book. And so I'd encourage you, if you have not gotten a chance to read that book, just to get a copy. It's available everywhere online. And also the Holistic Wealth Personal Workbook is also a great tool to add to your toolbox to get this process started. And so one of the first things that I would say is, there's so many reasons, as I said, why people feel stuck in life. And another issue is the comparison game. So with social media and so many people spending so much time on social media, it's easy to compare. And that's one of the things, there's a whole chapter in the book on not comparing and why it's so toxic. But that comparison game also causes us to feel stuck in life. When we look at what somebody else is doing, somebody else is achieving, you might think, wow, I am just here, just not doing, not much with my life, or I don't feel like I'm doing that much with my life. And there's somebody else over there doing a million things and achieving all these things. And well, my life just pales in comparison. And whether it has to do with our relationships, marriage, whether it has to do with finances, whether it has to do with our job or careers, whether it has to do with just our emotional, mental health, or even physical health, all of those are core aspects of holistic wealth. And which is why when we think about getting unstuck, we need to think about it from a holistic perspective, from a holistic wealth perspective, because that's the most sustainable way of doing that. And so the first thing I would say is not to linger on the past and not to get stuck in the past, because so many people live in regret. And they think about the past and they think, wow, if I had done this differently, I would have been so much more better off right now. Or my life would be 10 times better if I didn't marry that person. Or if my finances, if I had taken charge of this 10 years ago, I'd be so much better, especially now with the global economy and high inflation. But you know what? Like, it's easy to say should have, could have done that. Let's move on from the past, not dwell there, because dwelling on the past is also a recipe for keeping stuck. It's also a recipe for keeping stuck. So the first thing we want to do is change that mindset. We want to get out of that kind of scarcity mindset into one of abundance and looking forward to the future with hope. And so renewing that hope on a daily basis is so important for becoming unstuck in life. And so when we talk about even spiritual renewal, which I've spoken about on this podcast before, that's also important in terms of renewing your daily hope and motivation. So I want to talk about an exercise in mind mapping, because I think that when we think about getting unstuck, I think mastering that art of transcendence is so important. So you know how you always hear people talk about, well, how do you define success? What does success mean to you? I think some people tend to get stuck because of how we're defining success. And so we need to redefine success on our own terms, get really in sync with what our core values are, write down your top 5 values and really live for those values or in alignment with those values. Make that values pyramid and list from 1 to 5, and rank them. Like, feel free to rank them. If you have more than 5, rank them and really get in tune with who you are authentically, living that authentic life to your goals, to your dreams, to your passions is so important, especially when it comes on to life purpose, because we're all here for a specific purpose. We're all here to manifest something beautiful and unique with our own stories, our own experiences, our own lives. And so that's why comparing and looking at what somebody else is doing is actually the opposite and keeps us stuck. So when we talk about mind mapping, what is that? Well, get your thoughts on paper. So when you think about getting unstuck, what are those feelings that come about? How does it make you feel? Is it anxious? Does it make you feel angry? Does it make you feel frustrated? And write down the key areas of your life that you feel unstuck. So are you feeling stuck in your finances? Are you feeling stuck in, is it your marriage, your relationships? Is it the job? Is it your career? Is it your emotional and mental state? Is it your physical health? What key buckets of holistic wealth do you feel stuck in? And like while I'm talking, feel free to draw your buckets. Just draw 5 or 6 buckets that align with holistic wealth and label them: relationships, the job, career, finances, your home environment, whatever comes to mind, your goals, write them down. And when you draw those buckets, and I want you to actually draw like a bucket, if you have like a sheet in front of you, and really think about how full that bucket is. So what you can do is just pretend there's some water in the bucket and draw a line in each one, depicting how full your bucket is. And when you do that, think about your holistic wealth portfolio and think about the different aspects of holistic wealth. How full is that bucket? If you were to go through those buckets one by one, because you've labeled them now like we're labeling them, right? And you're going through your health, your physical health bucket, your mental health bucket, your finances bucket, your relationships bucket. And if you're married, you can put a separate bucket. There's no end on how many buckets you can go to town with your buckets. But I want you to get a sense of the major ones and how full those buckets are. And if one bucket is completely empty, then I think we need to put some emphasis there, because when we get to a point where we feel stuck, it can be as a result of overwhelm, underwhelm, burnout, toxic relationships, a toxic job. So go through each of those buckets and really center on where the problem is. That way, it leads to a certain sense of self-awareness so that we can really tackle the problem head on. And mind mapping is writing down your thoughts about the different buckets where there is an issue. So after you've laid out those buckets, I just want you to go through and write down your thoughts. You can label thoughts about, let's say you're picking finances or your finance bucket, put finance bucket and then put some thoughts there. That's mind mapping. Here are some questions to ask. What would I need to do to fill this bucket? What needs to be done? How far away is that for me? And really strategize on implementing some things, whether it's reducing debt for that bucket, whether it's reducing spending. And all of these buckets are interconnected. And we need to remember that getting unstuck requires that holistic approach. And so the other thing that I want you to do is to get clear on your goals. Now, in the Holistic Wealth Expanded and Updated book, there's a whole chapter on goals. And there is in the workbook another chapter on writing down. And when I mentioned the art of transcendence before, I want you to think about your personal mission. I want you to think about your life purpose. So we're transcending all of these different things, but this is that transcendence is going to get us to where we want. So when you think about transcendence, you're thinking about your overall life purpose and you're thinking about your overall mission. And that should guide everything. And getting unstuck means taking small actions every single day. So I want you to think about some small actions that you can take every single day to help move from a state of feeling stuck to unstuck, and being intentional about really taking those small actions every single day. And it's amazing once we start to do that, what can happen in our lives, and also really finding the motivation to carry that through. So if you need to have an accountability partner, if you want to start a holistic wealth project group so that you can come together in a group and get unstuck together on your different goals and dreams, that's also a very good way of doing it. So figuring out your life purpose, what are your passions? And that also helps you get unstuck. Now, the Institute on Holistic Wealth is launching a new life purpose certification program in the next coming weeks. So feel free to reach out to me at info@KeishaBlair.com if you're interested in that, so you can have an early sign up for that program. And that's also a key part of getting unstuck. So I said this was going to be a short, sweet episode. So I don't want to labor too much on each one of those, but I've gone through a series of steps. I hope that was really helpful for you in terms of getting the process started. And of course, it really takes intentional moves every single day to achieve our goals. So that's also critical. And, before I end this episode once again, I want to thank everyone for being a part of this journey, being a part of this podcast, following along, sharing these episodes. We've had some amazing episodes this year. Feel free to go back through some of the episodes that are also complementary to this episode. Like we had an episode on resilience just prior to this one. I think that's a great episode to also listen to in terms of getting unstuck. And there are a few other solo episodes that I've done in the past that are also critical in terms of getting unstuck. I will list them in the show notes. All of those episodes will be listed in the show notes as key resources for you, so you can go back through and listen to them, make your notes, and really apply the lessons in the aspects of your life, and especially in the key aspects that you think are keeping you stuck. Gratitude is such a key part of getting unstuck. It's so important that we all channel gratitude. It's so important that we also celebrate the little wins and the big wins in our lives, because there's so much going on in our lives on a day-to-day basis that we need to celebrate the small wins, the big wins, and we also need to help each other celebrate those small and big wins. And I started out on this podcast show, on this episode, telling you about the 2023 Best Book Award that was announced this week for Holistic Wealth, Expanded and Updated. And that book also has a foreword by Kelly Rutherford, star of Gossip Girl. But again, it's key that we recognize these glimmers in our lives, things that happen to us after we've been doing, work and doing different things in our lives for so long. When these moments come up, it's key that we share them with each other and really channel that gratitude. So again, thank you for sharing this journey with me. I hope you all have a great week. And I hope that these lessons will start you and kickstart the journey if you're feeling stuck in life. I'm hoping that this was an episode that really helped. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions, or if you want me to follow up on another podcast episode that dives deeper into any one of the themes or the sub-themes that I've mentioned in the show today. So everyone have a great week. I wish you lots of love, and hoping that this episode starts you on your journey to getting unstuck.
The Holistic Wealth Podcast with Keisha Blair is brought to you by...
Have you joined the Institute on Holistic Wealth? If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Choose your membership plan at the Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to join. As a member, you'll get access to free worksheets, advice, coaching, and an intentional design workshop. As you start to live a more holistically wealthy lifestyle, you'll want to stay for a very long time. So go to Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to join. If you haven't read the book yet, pick up a copy of the award-winning best-selling Holistic Wealth 36 Life Lessons to help you recover from disruption, find your life purpose, and achieve financial freedom.